The small escape pod tumbled through the debris field, spinning end over end in the darkness of space. Inside, a child screamed, her four arms pressed against the transparent viewing panel as she watched her world burn. Kira was only 7 cycles old by Vixarian counting. She did not understand why the humans had attacked. She did not understand why her mother had pushed her into the escape pod and sealed the door. She did not understand why the beautiful floating cities of her home station were now nothing but fire and twisted metal. All she knew was that she was alone, and the cold of space was seeping into her bones. The Vixarian people had been enemies of humanity for 300 years. The First Contact War had killed billions on both sides. Treaties had been signed and broken. Generations had grown up learning to hate. Kira's own grandfather had been a war hero, celebrated for destroying a human colony ship. His stories had been her bedtime tales. Now those stories seemed very far away. The escape pod systems were failing. Red lights flashed everywhere. The air was growing thin. Kira did not know how long she had been drifting. Hours, days, time had lost all meaning. She curled into a ball in the corner of the pod, her gray skin turning pale blue from the cold. Her large black eyes, which could see in spectrums humans could never imagine, stared at nothing. She had stopped crying. There were no more tears left. This was how she would die, she thought. Alone in the dark, surrounded by the remains of everyone she had ever loved. Perhaps that was fitting. Perhaps this was what her people deserved for all the terrible things they had done to the humans. The escape pod shuddered. Kira's head snapped up. Through the viewing panel she saw something massive moving toward her. A ship, not Vixarian design. The angular lines, the gray hull plating, the weapons arrays that bristled like thorns. Human. Terror flooded through her small body. She pressed herself against the far wall of the pod, as if that extra meter of distance could somehow protect her. The humans had come to finish what they started. They would open the pod and kill her, just as they had killed everyone else. The ship's docking arm extended, grabbing the escape pod with surprising gentleness. Kira watched through the panel as she was pulled toward an opening in the ship's hull. Lights activated around her, revealing a small hangar bay. The escape pod settled onto the deck with a soft clunk. For a long moment, nothing happened. Kira could hear her own breathing, fast and shallow. She could hear the hum of the human ship around her. She waited for the door to be torn open, for weapons to be pointed at her face. Instead, she heard a voice. It came through the pod's damaged communication system, crackling with static. "Hello, can you understand me? If there's anyone alive in there, we're not going to hurt you. We're here to help." Kira did not move. It was a trick. It had to be a trick. Humans were monsters. They killed Vixarian children for sport. That was what her teachers had always said. The voice came again. "We're detecting one life sign. Vixarian. Young. Please, if you can hear me, we're going to open the door now. We have medical supplies and food. You're safe." The escape pod's door hissed open. Kira screamed. Standing in the hangar bay were 3 humans. They wore simple gray uniforms with a patch on the shoulder that showed a white dove against a blue background. 2 of them were male, 1 female. The female was at the front, her hands raised in what Kira would later learn was a universal gesture of peace. "It's okay," the woman said. Her voice was soft, gentle, not at all like the snarling war cries Kira had seen in historical documentaries. "It's okay, little one. No one is going to hurt you." Kira pressed herself into the corner so hard that her back ached. Her 4 arms were wrapped around her body, trying to make herself as small as possible. She hissed, baring her small teeth, the way her mother had taught her to do when threatened. The woman did not flinch. She did not reach for a weapon. She simply knelt down, bringing herself to Kira's eye level. "My name is Alina," the woman said. "Alina Martinez. I'm the captain of this ship, the Mercy's Light. We're a humanitarian vessel. Do you know what that means?" Kira shook her head slightly, then caught herself. She should not be responding to the human. She should be fighting, running, dying with honor as her grandfather would have wanted. But she was so tired, so cold, so alone. It means we help people, Alina continued. All people, human, Vexarian, anyone who needs it. We saw your escape pod, we saw the battle, we came as fast as we could. You killed them, Kira whispered. Her voice was small and broken. You killed everyone. Alina's face changed. Something that looked like pain crossed her features. No, little one, we didn't. That wasn't us. That was a military fleet. They're gone now. We came after to search for survivors. There are no survivors, Kira said. I watched them all burn. I know, Alina said. I'm so sorry, I'm so very sorry. The human's eyes were wet. Kira had seen Vexarians cry, but she had never imagined that humans could do the same. Monsters did not cry. Monsters did not feel pain. Why? Kira asked. Why would you help me? We are enemies. Your people and mine, we hate each other. Alina was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You're a child. That's all that matters to me right now. You're a child who is alone and scared and hurt. I don't care what species you are. I don't care what our governments say. You need help and I'm going to give it. She reached out a hand slowly, carefully, giving Kira every chance to pull away. Will you come with me? We have warm blankets and hot food. We have a doctor who can check to make sure you're not injured. And when you're ready, we can talk about what happens next. Kira stared at the offered hand. It looked so strange to her. Only 5 fingers with no claws, pink skin that seemed impossibly soft. This was the hand of the enemy. This was also the only hand being offered to her in the entire universe. Slowly, hesitantly, Kira reached out with one of her own 4 arms. Her gray fingers touched Alina's palm. The human skin was warm. So warm. Kira had not realized how cold she had become until that moment. Alina smiled. It was a kind smile, the kind that made wrinkles appear at the corners of her eyes. Come on, she said. Let's get you somewhere safe. She helped Kira out of the escape pod. The little Vexarian's legs were weak and shaky, but Alina steadied her. The 2 male humans stepped forward, and for a moment Kira flinched again. But they only draped a thick blanket over her shoulders, the kind that seemed to generate its own heat. This is Marcus and David, Alina said. They're part of my crew. They're going to help take care of you. Marcus, the taller one with dark skin and kind eyes, smiled at her. Hey there, little one. You're going to be okay now. David, shorter and older with gray in his hair, nodded. We've got you. Kira did not understand. Nothing in her short life had prepared her for this. Humans were supposed to be cruel. They were supposed to be savage. They were supposed to be everything that was wrong with the universe. But here they were, wrapping her in warmth, speaking softly, treating her like she mattered. I don't understand, she said again, because she could not stop saying it. Why are you being kind to me? Alina knelt beside her again. Because kindness is a choice, little one. Hatred is taught, but kindness is also taught, and I choose to teach kindness. Every single day I choose it. She gently guided Kira toward a door that led deeper into the ship. Now come, you must be hungry. Kira was. She was so hungry that her stomach ached. She had not eaten since before the attack. How long ago that seemed now. As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Kira noticed something strange. There were pictures on the walls. Some were of landscapes, green and blue places that must have been from Earth, but others were of people, humans and non-humans alike. There was even a picture of a Vexarian family, smiling at the camera with all 4 arms raised in celebration. What is this ship? Kira asked. The Mercy's Light is part of an organization called the Humanitarian Fleet, Alina explained. We operate outside the military. Our job is to help refugees, rescue survivors, and bring aid to those who need it, regardless of which side of any conflict they're on. Your government allows this. Alina's smile became slightly sad. Not everyone agrees with what we do, but enough people do. Enough people believe that compassion should have no borders. They reached a small room that looked like a medical bay. A woman was waiting there, older than Alina, with white hair pulled back in a tight knot. She wore a white coat and carried a medical scanner. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen," Alina said. "She's going to make sure you're healthy. Is that okay?" Kira looked at the doctor. Dr. Chen's face was lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and alert. She did not smile, but there was something steady about her that made Kira feel like she could be trusted. "I will not hurt you, child," Dr. Chen said. "I have treated many Vexarian patients. I know your biology quite well." Kira nodded slowly. She allowed herself to be helped onto a medical bed that adjusted to accommodate her 4 arms. Dr. Chen ran her scanner over Kira's body, frowning at the readings. "Malnutrition, dehydration, minor hypothermia. She's been in that pod for at least 2 days without food or water." The doctor looked at Alina. "She's lucky to be alive." "Can you help her?" "Of course I can. Get her some food. Something bland at first, her stomach won't be able to handle much. And warm liquids, lots of warm liquids." Alina nodded and left the room. Kira watched her go, suddenly feeling very alone again. Dr. Chen noticed and patted her arm gently. "She'll be right back. Captain Martinez never abandons anyone. Trust me, I've known her for 30 years. 30 years, Kira repeated. That's a long time. It is. We were young together once. We believed we could change the universe. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. Maybe we're still trying. Alina returned with a tray. On it was a bowl of something that steamed and smelled surprisingly good, and a cup of warm liquid that Kira later learned was called tea. The cook said this should be safe for Vexarian stomachs, Alina said. It's vegetable broth with some protein supplements added. Nothing fancy, but it should help. Kira took the bowl with trembling hands. She lifted it to her lips and drank. The warmth spread through her body like a wave. She had never tasted anything so good in her entire life. Slowly, Dr. Chen warned. Your stomach has been empty for too long. If you eat too fast, you'll be sick. Kira forced herself to slow down. It was the hardest thing she had ever done. As she ate, Alina pulled up a chair and sat beside her. Can you tell us your name, little one? Kira, she said between sips. My name is Kira. That's a beautiful name. Can you tell us what happened, Kira? Only if you're ready. Kira set down the bowl. Her hands were still shaking, but not from cold anymore. From memory. We were on Station 17, she said. It's a civilian station, no military, just families. My mother worked in the gardens. My father was a teacher. Her voice caught. She took a deep breath. The humans came without warning, ships everywhere. They started shooting. My mother put me in the escape pod. She said she would find another one, but I saw, Kira's voice broke completely. I saw the station explode while I was watching. Alina's hand found hers. I'm so sorry, Kira. I'm so very sorry. Why? Kira asked, and this time the question was different. Not why are you helping me, but why did this happen? We weren't soldiers, we were just living. Why did they come? Alina looked at Dr. Chen. A heavy silence filled the room. I don't know, Alina finally said. I don't know why the military makes the decisions it makes, but I do know this, Kira. Not all humans are like them, just as not all Vexarians are like your military leaders. There are good and bad in every species. My grandfather killed humans, Kira whispered. He was proud of it. He told me stories. And human soldiers have killed Vexarians. For 300 years we've been killing each other. Alina squeezed Kira's hand. But that doesn't mean it has to continue. That doesn't mean you and I have to be enemies. Kira looked at the human woman, really looked at her for the first time. Alina's hair was brown with streaks of gray. Her eyes were a light color that Kira would later learn was called hazel. There were lines on her face from years of smiling and years of worrying. She looked tired but not weak, never weak. "I don't want to be your enemy," Kira said quietly. "Then you won't be," Alina replied. "You're going to stay with us for a while, okay? Until we can figure out what to do next, until we can find a safe place for you. You're going to be part of our crew." "Part of your crew?" "Family," Alina corrected herself. "You're going to be part of our family." It was too much. The kindness, the warmth, the safety. After everything Kira had lost, after everything she had been taught to believe, this was too much. She started to cry. Great, heaving sobs that shook her whole body. And Alina Martinez, captain of the Mercy's Light, held her through all of it, rocking her gently and making soft sounds of comfort. "I've got you," Alina whispered. "I've got you. You're safe now, you're safe." And for the first time since her world had ended, Kira believed it. The Mercy's Light continued its journey through space, carrying its cargo of one small, orphaned alien girl. Outside, the universe burned with ancient hatred. Inside, a spark of something new was beginning to grow. Something that might, one day, change everything. 3 months passed on the Mercy's Light, and Kira began to learn what it meant to be human. Not biologically, of course. She was still Vexarian, with her gray skin and 4 arms and large black eyes that made humans stare when they first saw her. But the crew of the Mercy's Light taught her something different. They taught her what humanity meant as a concept, as an ideal, as a way of living. It started with small things. Marcus, the tall crew member with the kind eyes, taught her how to play card games. He was patient with her, explaining the rules over and over until she understood. When she finally won her first game, he cheered so loudly that Captain Alina came running to make sure everything was okay. "She beat me," Marcus said proudly, pointing at Kira. "Fair and square, this kid is a natural." Kira felt something warm bloom in her chest. Pride. She had not felt that since before the attack. David, the older crew member, taught her about Earth history. He had a collection of old books, real paper books, that he treated like treasure. He would sit with Kira in the ship's small library and read to her about ancient civilizations, about wars and peace, about the long journey humans had taken from their first caves to the stars. "Humans have always been fighters," David said one evening. "But we've also always been dreamers. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes the fighting takes over, but the dreaming is always there underneath." "The fighting killed my family," Kira said quietly. David nodded, his face serious. "I know, and there's nothing I can say that will make that okay. But I want you to know that the same species that did that terrible thing is also the species that built this ship. The species that rescued you. We are both things, Kira. We are capable of great evil and great good. The choice of which we become is made every single day." Dr. Chen taught her about medicine. The old doctor had a gruff exterior, but Kira quickly learned that she had the softest heart on the ship. She let Kira help in the medical bay, giving her simple tasks at first, then more complex ones as her skills grew. "You have steady hands," Dr. Chen observed one day, watching Kira carefully bandage a practice dummy. "All 4 of them, that's rare. You might make a good doctor someday." "Me, a doctor?" "Why not? You're smart, you're careful, you care about helping people. That's all it takes, really. The rest can be learned." Kira thought about that for a long time. Her grandfather had wanted her to be a warrior. Her father had wanted her to be a teacher like him. Her mother had wanted her to work in the gardens, growing the beautiful flowers that had filled their station. None of them had ever mentioned doctor. But none of them were here anymore to tell her what to be. Perhaps she could choose for herself. Captain Alina taught her the most important lessons of all. She taught Kira about compassion. "There's a philosophy on Earth," Alina explained one night as they sat together in the ship's observation deck, watching the stars drift by. "It's called Ubuntu. It comes from a very old language from a place called Africa. It means I am because we are. My humanity is tied up in yours. When I hurt you, I hurt myself. When I help you, I help myself." "Is that why you saved me?" Kira asked. "Because of Ubuntu?" "Partly, but also because it was the right thing to do. Because when I saw your escape pod, I didn't see an enemy. I saw a child who needed help. And helping children who need help is what we do. It's what we should all do." "The military doesn't think that way." "No," Alina agreed. "They don't. The military sees enemies and allies, threats and assets. They've forgotten how to see people." "Will they ever remember?" Alina was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know, Kira, I hope so. That's why we do this work. Not just to save individual lives, though that matters enormously, but to remind people, to remind the whole universe that compassion is possible, that hatred is not inevitable, that we can choose to be better." Kira leaned against Alina's side. The captain's arm came around her automatically, pulling her close. "I want to be like you when I grow up," Kira said. Alina laughed softly. "Be better than me. Always try to be better than those who came before. That's how progress happens." The Mercy's light traveled through war zones and disaster areas, responding to distress calls from any species that needed help. Kira watched as the crew worked tirelessly, pulling survivors from wreckage, providing medical care to the wounded, distributing food and water to refugees. She saw them help Vexarians without hesitation, treating her people with the same kindness they had shown her. She saw them help humans too, humans who had been caught in the crossfire of the endless war. She saw them help species she had never heard of, beings from distant stars with strange bodies and stranger customs. To the crew of the Mercy's Light, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the need. "How do you do it?" Kira asked Marcus one day after a particularly difficult mission. They had responded to a distress call from a colony that had been attacked by pirates. Many people had died. The survivors were traumatized, their eyes empty and lost. Marcus had carried children out of rubble with his own hands. His uniform was covered in dust and blood. But he had never stopped working, never stopped being gentle. "How do I do what?" he asked, washing his hands in the ship's small sink. "Keep going after seeing so much pain. How do you not give up?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, drying his hands on a towel. Then he turned to face her. "You know what I think about when it gets really hard," he said. "I think about all the people we've saved, all the lives we've touched. Every single one of them matters. Every single one of them is a universe of experiences and dreams and possibilities. When I pull someone out of the rubble, I'm not just saving one person. I'm saving everyone they will ever meet, everyone they will ever help, everyone they will ever love." He knelt down to Kira's level, just like Alina had done on that first day in the hangar. "You're one of those people, Kira. We pulled you out of the darkness and now look at you. You're learning and growing and becoming someone amazing. One day you're going to help people too, and those people will help other people, and it keeps going forever like ripples in water. That's how we beat the darkness. Not all at once, but one light at a time." Kira hugged him then, wrapping all four arms around his broad shoulders. He hugged her back, careful and warm. "Thank you," she whispered. "Always," he replied. But not everyone was kind. The Mercy's Light sometimes had to stop at space stations to resupply. It was during one of these stops that Kira encountered her first taste of the hatred that still existed in the universe. She was walking through the station's marketplace with David, looking at the strange goods from 100 different worlds. David was telling her about the history of interstellar trade, one of his favorite subjects, when she felt someone grab her arm. She turned to see a human man staring at her with pure hatred in his eyes. He was older, with scars on his face that spoke of old battles. His grip on her arm was painfully tight. "What's a Vex doing on a human station?" the man snarled. "Shouldn't you be back on one of your ships killing our children?" Kira froze. Terror flooded through her, old and familiar. She had thought she was past this, thought she had moved beyond the fear. But here it was again, as fresh as that first day in the escape pod. "Let go of her," David said, his voice hard and cold. Kira had never heard him sound like that before. "She's an enemy," the man spat. "Her kind killed my family, my wife, my daughter, all dead because of the Vex, and you're just walking around with one like it's nothing." "She's a child," David said. "She's 7 years old, she didn't kill anyone." "They're all the same, kill them before they grow up to kill us, that's what I say." "Let go." Something in David's voice made the man pause. He looked at the old crew member more carefully, taking in the scars, the posture, the steadiness of his gaze. "You're military," the man said slowly, "or you were." "I was a lot of things," David replied. "Now I'm someone who protects children, all children, including this one. So you have two choices. Let go and walk away, or don't let go and find out exactly what I learned in all those years of service." The man's grip loosened. He stepped back, but his eyes never left Kira. The hatred there was deep, permanent, carved into his soul by loss and pain. "This isn't over," he said. "The war is coming. A real war, not this little skirmish we've been having. And when it comes, everyone will have to choose a side, even your precious kid." He turned and disappeared into the crowd. David knelt beside Kira, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Are you okay?" Kira was shaking. She tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. "I'm sorry," David said. "I'm so sorry you had to experience that. Not everyone is like us, Kira. Not everyone has learned to let go of their hate." "He lost his family," Kira whispered, "like me." "Yes, and his pain turned into anger, which turned into hatred. That's what happens when we don't process our grief properly, when we let it consume us instead of moving through it." "Could that happen to me?" David looked at her for a long moment. "It could happen to anyone. That's why we work so hard on this ship, to teach kindness, to surround ourselves with compassion. The darkness is always there, waiting, but so is the light. The question is which one you choose to feed." They returned to the ship soon after. Kira didn't tell Alina about the incident, but somehow the captain knew anyway. That night, she came to Kira's small cabin and sat on the edge of her bed. "David told me what happened," Alina said. Kira pulled the blankets tighter around herself. "I'm scared." "Of the man. Of everything. Of the war. Of the hatred. Of what might happen if things get worse." Alina nodded slowly. "Those are reasonable fears. The universe is a scary place sometimes. But I want you to remember something, Kira. Fear is not a weakness. Fear is a signal. It tells us what matters to us, what we want to protect. The brave people aren't the ones who feel no fear. They're the ones who feel the fear and act anyway." "What if I'm not brave?" "You survived alone in an escape pod for 2 days. You trusted strangers from a species you'd been taught to hate. You've adapted to a new life, learned new things, made new friends. Kira, you're one of the bravest people I've ever met." Kira felt tears prick at her eyes. "I don't feel brave." "Neither do I most of the time, but we keep going anyway. We keep trying to make the universe a little bit better. That's all any of us can do." Alina leaned down and kissed Kira's forehead, the way Kira's mother used to do before bed. "Sleep now," Alina said. "Tomorrow is a new day, and you're not alone anymore." She turned off the light and left the room. Kira lay in the darkness, thinking about everything that had happened. The pain, the fear, the kindness, the hope. Slowly, the tension drained from her body. She thought of her mother, her father, her grandfather. She thought of the station where she was born, now nothing but debris floating in space. She thought of the man in the marketplace, his face twisted with hatred. And she thought of Alina, Marcus, David, Dr. Chen, the crew of the Mercy's Light, her new family. The darkness was real, but so was the light. Kira chose the light. She closed her eyes and slept, and her dreams were peaceful for the first time in months. The war came, just as the angry man had predicted. It started with border skirmishes, small battles that the news networks barely reported. Then it escalated, colony ships destroyed, civilian stations attacked. Both sides blamed the other. Both sides swore revenge. Kira was 9 years old now, having spent 2 years on the Mercy's Light. She had grown taller, stronger, more confident. She could bandage wounds almost as well as Dr. Chen. She could navigate the ship systems under Marcus's supervision. She could quote Earth history from memory thanks to David's lessons. But all her growth and learning couldn't prepare her for the scale of what was coming. "They're calling it the final war," Elena said, addressing the crew in the ship's small meeting room. Her face was grave, lined with worry. "Both governments have declared total mobilization. Every able-bodied person is being called to serve." "Including humanitarian workers?" David asked. "Including everyone. They're suspending all neutral operations. Any ship not actively fighting for one side or the other will be considered a legitimate target by both." The room fell silent. Kira sat in the corner, watching the adults. She understood what this meant. The Mercy's Light had been operating in a gray area, accepted by both sides because it helped both sides. Now that gray area was disappearing. "What do we do?" Marcus asked. Elena looked around at her crew, her family. These were the people she had worked with for decades. These were the people she trusted with her life, with her soul. "We keep doing what we've always done," she said. "We help people, all people. I don't care what the governments say. I don't care what the military says. We are not soldiers. We are healers, rescuers, lights in the darkness. And the darkness has never needed our light more than it does now." "They'll hunt us," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Both sides will be enemies to everyone. Then we'll be the best enemies they've ever had. We'll show them that compassion cannot be destroyed by war, that kindness cannot be killed by hatred." She looked at Kira and something passed between them, an understanding, a shared determination. "Who's with me?" Elena asked. One by one, the crew raised their hands, every single one. The Mercy's Light flew into the war zone. What they found there was worse than anything Kira had imagined. Entire worlds were burning. Refugee ships clogged the space lanes, desperate people fleeing the violence. Military vessels from both sides fired on anything that moved, asking questions never. The crew worked without rest. They pulled survivors from wreckage. They treated wounds that defied description. They fed the hungry, sheltered the homeless, comforted the dying. Kira worked alongside them. She was still young, but she had learned so much. She moved through the medical bay like a ghost, fetching supplies, holding hands, speaking soft words of comfort in both human and Vexarian. The patients looked at her with confusion at first. What was a Vexarian child doing on a human ship? Why was she helping them? Didn't she know they were enemies? But Kira's kindness was patient and persistent. She helped human soldiers and Vexarian warriors alike. She treated them all with the same gentle care. And slowly, gradually, she began to change minds. "You're not what I expected," a wounded human Marine told her one night. His name was James, and he had lost an arm in a battle against Vexarian forces. "I thought all Vex were monsters." "Some are," Kira said honestly. "Just like some humans are monsters, but most of us are just people. People with families and dreams and fears. People who want to live." "I used to hate your kind," James admitted. "I was taught to hate you from the day I was born. My father fought in the First War. His father fought in the war before that. Hatred was my inheritance." "And now?" James was quiet for a moment, watching as Kira carefully changed his bandages. "Now I don't know what to think. You're just a kid. You're gentle and kind, and you're helping me even though your people are the ones who took my arm. It doesn't make sense." "Maybe that's the point," Kira said. "Maybe nothing about this war makes sense. Maybe the only sensible thing is to stop fighting and start helping each other." James laughed, though it sounded sad. You sound like your captain. She taught me everything I know. The conversation stayed with Kira long after James was healed and transferred to a refugee station. She thought about inheritance, about what was passed down from generation to generation. Hatred could be inherited, but so could compassion, so could hope. The question was which inheritance would win. The Mercy's Light was attacked 3 times in the first month of the final war. Once by humans, once by Vixarians, once by pirates who saw their vulnerable ship as easy prey. Each time, Alina's skill and the crew's determination got them through. The ship was damaged but not destroyed. The crew was shaken but not broken. After the 3rd attack, Kira found Alina alone in the observation deck. The captain was staring out at the stars, her reflection ghostly in the transparent aluminum. "Are you okay?" Kira asked. Alina turned, and Kira was startled to see tears on her face. In 2 years, she had never seen the captain cry. "Sometimes I wonder if we're making any difference at all," Alina said. "We save a few hundred people here, a few thousand there, but millions are dying. Billions might die before this war is over. What does our little ship matter against all that death?" Kira climbed into the chair beside Alina and took her hand. The gesture felt natural now, automatic. They had become so close, closer than Kira had ever been with anyone except her real mother. "You matter to everyone on this ship," Kira said. "You matter to everyone we've saved. You mattered to me when you pulled me out of that escape pod. You were the only light I could see in the whole universe." Alina squeezed her hand. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good teachers." They sat together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, battles were being fought. People were dying. Hatred was spreading like a virus. But here on this small ship, love persisted. Compassion endured. Hope remained. "I want to show you something," Alina said finally. She pulled out a small device and activated a holographic display. Numbers and images floated in the air between them. "What is this?" "Statistics. Every person we've saved since the war began. Every life we've touched. Look at the numbers, Kira." Kira looked. The numbers were large, larger than she had expected. 4,723 people, Alina said. "That's how many we've pulled from the wreckage. That's how many lives we've saved. And that's just direct rescues. If you count the people we've fed, clothed, given medical treatment to, the number is over 20,000. 20,000, Kira repeated. Each one of those people has a family, friends, a community. When we save them, we save everyone who loves them too. The ripple effect is incalculable." Alina turned off the display and looked at Kira directly. "That's why we keep going. Not because we can end the war, not because we can stop all the suffering, but because every single life matters. Every single act of kindness matters. We can't save everyone, Kira, but we can save someone, and someone is enough. Someone is always enough." Kira thought about the Marine with the missing arm, about the Vexarian refugees she had helped settle on a neutral station, about all the children she had comforted, all the wounds she had bandaged, all the tears she had dried. "Someone is enough," she repeated. "That's right, and tomorrow we'll save someone else, and the day after that, and the day after that, until the war ends or until we die trying." "I don't want you to die," Kira said. "Neither do I, but I'd rather die doing something meaningful than live doing nothing at all." Alina hugged her then, tight and fierce and full of love. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to this ship, Kira. You know that. You're proof that everything we believe is possible. A Vexarian child, raised by humans, becoming a healer and a helper. You're the future we're fighting for." Kira hugged her back just as tight. "I love you," she said, "Mom." It was the first time she had called Alina that. The word felt strange on her tongue, strange but right. Alina's arms tightened. "I love you too, daughter." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, while the universe burned around them. Two people from different species, from different worlds, from opposite sides of an ancient war, bound together by something stronger than biology or politics or hatred. Bound together by love. The war would continue, people would keep dying, hatred would keep spreading. But on the Mercy's light, a small miracle was growing. A Vexarian girl was becoming human in all the ways that mattered, and a human crew was learning that the family you choose can be just as real as the family you're born into. Perhaps that was the real victory. Perhaps that was how you won against hatred. Not with weapons, not with politics, but with love. One small light at a time. The final war raged for 3 more years. Kira was 12 now, no longer a child but not quite an adult. She had grown into her role on the Mercy's light, becoming one of the most skilled medics on the ship despite her age. Dr. Chen had begun training her formally, and Kira absorbed everything the old doctor taught her. But the war had changed her in other ways too. She had seen too much death, too much suffering. The light in her eyes, which Alina had worked so hard to kindle, sometimes flickered with exhaustion and grief. "You need to rest," Alina told her one evening after a particularly brutal rescue mission. "You've been working for 30 hours straight." "I can't rest," Kira said. "There are still people who need help." "There will always be people who need help, but you can't help anyone if you collapse. Take care of yourself, Kira. That's an order." Kira wanted to argue, but she was too tired. She let Alina guide her to her cabin and fell onto her bed without even removing her shoes. She dreamed of her mother, of the gardens on Station 17, where beautiful flowers bloomed in every color, of her father teaching classes, his voice gentle and patient, of her grandfather telling stories of battle, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. When she woke, she was crying. The war entered its final phase 6 months later. Both sides were exhausted. The death toll had reached numbers that defied comprehension. Entire star systems had been rendered uninhabitable. The military leaders who had started the war were mostly dead, replaced by younger officers who had never known anything but conflict. But something was changing. Something that started with the Mercy's light and ships like it. Something that began with small acts of kindness in the midst of chaos. People were talking. Soldiers from both sides who had been treated on humanitarian ships. Refugees who had been rescued by crews of the enemy species. Children like Kira, orphans of the war, who had been raised by former enemies with love and compassion. The story spread, first as whispers, then as rumors, then as something louder, something that couldn't be ignored. Not all humans are monsters, the Vexarians heard. Not all Vexarians are monsters, the humans learned. We are the same, both species began to realize. We suffer the same, we love the same, we hope the same. Why are we killing each other? The peace talks began on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Both governments sent representatives. Both militaries sent observers, and at the insistence of a growing civilian movement, both sides allowed humanitarian workers to attend, including the crew of the Mercy's light. "You want me to speak?" Kira asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Alina nodded. "The organizers specifically requested you. You've become something of a symbol, Kira, a Vexarian raised by humans, a child of one species who became part of another. You represent everything the peace movement is fighting for." "I'm just a medic. I don't know anything about politics." "That's exactly why you should speak. The politicians have been talking for centuries, and all they've done is find new reasons to fight. Maybe it's time for someone who isn't a politician to talk, someone who knows what the war really looks like, someone who's seen the cost." Kira thought about it for a long time. She thought about her mother pushing her into the escape pod, her father, who had always believed that education was more powerful than weapons, her grandfather, whose stories of glory now seemed hollow and sad. She thought about James, the Marine with the missing arm, who had left the Mercy's light as a friend instead of an enemy. About all the patients she had treated, human and Vexarian alike. About all the hands she had held while they cried. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll do it." The peace conference was held in a vast chamber filled with beings from both species. Kira had never seen so many people in one place. The weight of their attention pressed down on her as she walked to the speaking platform. She was just a child, a 12-year-old Vexarian girl in a room full of powerful adults. What could she possibly say that would make any difference? But then she saw Elena in the crowd, watching her with pride and love. She saw Marcus and David and Dr. Chen, her family, her people, and she remembered what Elena had taught her. One light at a time. She took a deep breath and began to speak. 3 years ago, I was 7 years old. I lived on a civilian station with my mother and father. I had never met a human. Everything I knew about your species came from stories, history lessons that taught me you were monsters, enemies, something to be feared and hated. Her voice was steady, stronger than she had expected. Then the humans came and destroyed my station. They killed everyone I loved. I floated alone in an escape pod for 2 days, waiting to die. And when a ship finally found me, when the door finally opened, I saw humans standing there. I thought they had come to finish what they started. She paused, letting the silence settle. But they hadn't. They had come to help. Captain Elena Martinez and her crew, they pulled me out of that escape pod and saved my life. They fed me. They healed me. They loved me. A human woman became my mother. Human men and women became my family. They showed me that everything I had been taught was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Kira pressed on. I have spent the last 5 years on a humanitarian ship, helping survivors of this war. I have treated human soldiers and Vexarian warriors. I have held the hands of dying children from both species, and I have learned something that I wish everyone in this room could understand. She looked out at the assembled leaders, the generals and politicians and diplomats who held the fate of 2 species in their hands. We are the same, we suffer the same, we bleed the same, we love and hope and dream the same. The only difference between us is what we are taught to believe. Humans are taught that Vexarians are monsters. Vexarians are taught that humans are monsters. But it's not true. It was never true. Tears were running down her gray cheeks now, but she didn't stop. My grandfather was a war hero. He killed many humans and he was proud of it. But I have to believe that if he could have met Elena, if he could have seen how she loved me, he would have changed his mind. Because underneath the hatred, underneath the fear, we all want the same things. We want to be safe. We want to be loved. We want our children to have better lives than we did. She spread her 4 arms wide, a gesture that included everyone in the room. 300 years of war, billions dead. And for what? For hatred passed down from generation to generation, for fear that was taught instead of cured. We have spent so long destroying each other that we've forgotten we could have been building something instead, something wonderful, something that includes all of us. Her voice rose, filling the chamber. I am not asking you to forgive. Forgiveness takes time. I am not asking you to forget. Some things should never be forgotten. I am asking you to choose. Choose to stop teaching hatred. Choose to start teaching compassion. Choose to see each other as people instead of enemies. She pointed at herself, a small gray figure standing alone on a vast stage. I am proof that it's possible. I am the daughter of 2 species. I carry both your histories in my heart, and I am telling you from that heart that we do not have to keep killing each other. We can choose something different. We can choose peace. She took a shaky breath. One of my teachers told me that we cannot save everyone, but we can save someone, and someone is always enough. So please, let me be someone. Let all the children who have died in this war be someone. Let their deaths mean something. Choose peace. Choose life. Choose to be better. She had nothing left to say. She stood there, small and young and impossibly brave, waiting for the universe to decide. The silence stretched on and on. Then slowly, a human general stood up. He was old, his face scarred by decades of war. He walked to the speaking platform and stood before Kira. "I have fought your people my entire life," he said. "I have killed more Vixarians than I can count. I thought I was a hero. I thought I was protecting my species." He knelt down, bringing himself to Kira's eye level. The same gesture Alina had made all those years ago. "I was wrong," he said. "I see that now. Looking at you, looking at what you've become, I see everything we could have been if we had chosen differently." He reached out his hand, a human hand offering peace to a Vixarian child. "I don't know if I can change," he said. "I don't know if any of us can change, but I want to try. Will you help me?" Kira looked at his hand. Then she looked at Alina, who was crying openly in the crowd. "One light at a time." She took the general's hand. "Yes," she said, "I will help you. I will help all of you. That's what I was taught to do. That's what humans taught me." The applause started small. A few people clapping, scattered throughout the chamber. But it grew. It swelled. It became a roaring wave of sound that shook the walls and filled Kira's heart until she thought it might burst. She had done it. One small light in the darkness. But sometimes, one small light is all it takes to show the way home. The treaty was signed 3 months later. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever was, but it was a beginning. A real beginning. Alina watched the signing ceremony from the observation deck of the Mercy's Light, Kira standing beside her. The ship had been given a place of honor, orbiting the station where history was being made. "You did this," Alina said. "You know that, right? Your speech changed everything." Kira shook her head. "We did this, all of us, the whole crew, everyone who worked and fought and died for this moment. But it was your words that broke through, your story, your courage." Kira leaned against Alina, feeling the warmth of her adoptive mother's body. "I learned courage from you." Alina smiled, wrapping an arm around her. "And I learned hope from you." They stood together, watching the leaders of 2 species put their names to a document that promised a new future. It would take years, decades, maybe even centuries to fully heal the wounds of war. Old hatreds would not disappear overnight. Old fears would not simply vanish. But they had started, they had chosen. That was all anyone could ask. "What happens now?" Kira asked. "Now we keep working. The war is over, but there's still so much to do. Refugees to resettle, wounds to heal, communities to rebuild. The Mercy's Light still has a job." "And me?" Alina looked at her daughter, this remarkable girl who had changed everything. "That's up to you. You can stay on the ship. You can go to school somewhere. You can do anything you want." Kira thought about it. She thought about her dreams of becoming a doctor. She thought about the work that still needed to be done. She thought about the promise she had made to help everyone who needed it. "I want to stay," she said. "I want to keep helping. It's who I am now. It's who you made me." Alina's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't make you anything. You were always this person, Kira. I just helped you find her." She pulled Kira into a hug, tight and fierce and full of love. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "Your parents would be so proud of you." Kira hugged her back, thinking of her mother's smile, her father's gentle voice, her grandfather's stories. They were gone, but they lived on in her memories, in the person she had become, in the future she was helping to build. "They would have liked you," Kira said. "I think they would have liked you a lot. I would have liked them too." They stayed there, holding each other, as the signing ceremony concluded below. Cheers erupted from the station. Fireworks lit up the space around them, colors blooming against the darkness. A new era was beginning, an era of peace, an era of cooperation, an era where children would grow up learning about the war in history books instead of living it. It hadn't been easy. So many had died, so much had been lost. But humanity in the end had found its way, not through violence or conquest or domination, through compassion, through kindness, through the simple, radical act of choosing to see enemies as people. The Vexarians had helped too. They had taken the hand that was offered. They had listened to a child who spoke of love instead of hatred. Together, two species had built something new, something better. And at the heart of it all was a small gray girl with 4 arms and large black eyes. A girl who had lost everything and found a new family. A girl who had been taught to hate and learned to love. A girl who had proven that compassion could defy centuries of hatred. Kiera looked out at the stars, at the universe that had once seemed so dark and cold and full of enemies. It still wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect, but it was better. And better was enough. Better was everything. "Come on," Elena said, releasing her from the hug. "The crew is waiting. They want to celebrate." Kiera smiled, a real smile that reached all the way to her hearts. "Then let's go celebrate." They walked together through the corridors of the Mercy's Light, their home, their sanctuary, their place in the universe. Around them, the crew was gathering, humans who had become family, who had shown a terrified orphan that kindness knew no borders. Marcus pulled Kiera into a bear hug. David ruffled her hair. Dr. Chen smiled her rare, precious smile. "To peace," Elena said, raising a glass. "To peace," they all echoed. "And to Kiera," Marcus added, "the bravest kid in the universe." Kiera felt her face grow warm. "To all of us, to everyone who believed that things could be better." They drank, they laughed, they cried. They celebrated a future that had seemed impossible just years before. Outside the windows, 2 fleets that had been enemies now flew in formation together. Human ships and Vexarian ships, side by side, protecting the peace they had finally found. Centuries of hatred ended by compassion. A war that had killed billions, stopped by a child's plea for love. It seemed impossible. It seemed like a dream. But it was real. It was happening. And it had started here on this small ship with a woman who chose to rescue an enemy child. One light at a time. That was how you changed the universe. Kiera looked at her family, her crew, her people. She thought about all the patients she would help, all the lives she would touch, all the lights she would kindle in the years to come. She was no longer an orphan. She was no longer alone. She was human in all the ways that mattered. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all.